I was someone who grew up after the birth of the home computer, and to be honest, my parents didn't really have a home computer. My first introduction to Windows was on my grandpa's computer, actually. I would visit his house every Friday and get some time to chill around in his man cave of sorts. He had a dinky desktop with Windows Vista on it, and this is where I grew to love online flash games like Line Rider, Super Mario Sunshine 64, and pretty much anything I could get immersed in. Heck, even the pre-installed Windows chess game I played here and there. But this early 2000s theming, including games like Super Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 64, with its low poly aesthetics, quickly became a thing of the past. Super Mario Sunshine, Luigi's Mansion, Halo, and so on were the real peak of my childhood gaming experiences. But I often think back to that surreal time where games were something to be explored. Time just moved differently back then. Games like Run, Bloons Tower Defense, Bloxors were all kind of ingrained in my childhood. Since then, Y2K as an aesthetic and style have become incredibly popular today. I see it in fashion, art, and I've seen it come back in this beautiful resurgence where it's even become some creators' entire theming, incentivizing people to rediscover this bubbly style of the past. Y2K is just so cool. People remember the times of the early internet and early days of operating systems like iOS, where everything wasn't so flat and modernized, but instead incredibly expressive, stylized, bold, and shiny. But this game, Eternity Ache, goes back before those times, before corporations had a proper grasp on aesthetics, functionality, and user experience. Eternity Ache is incredibly surreal and weird, to put it lightly. I think Asmongold describing it as a schizo game does it a great injustice, because while yes, the game does look weird and uncohesive, I actually see this game as something that is masterfully crafted and made with intention, as seen in its opening cutscene, a world that is surprisingly deep for a game that looks like it was made during the days of Windows 95. That opening sequence introduces you to a world of mystery, but the OST along with these dramatic visuals entice you to keep going to see if there is depth to this weird little game. So what is Eternity Ache? Well, the Steam store page describes it as a 3D platformer with action-adventure elements where you uncover the secrets of a warped reality. A chaotic one at that, with bouncy movement, grotesque characters, and high energy trance music. And this game, to be clear, is obviously niche. It's clearly not for everyone, but I personally think games excel when they don't try to be for everyone, but instead it allows itself to grow into its own domain, its own being, where real fans can truly appreciate the art. Eternity Ache captures potential fans with its incredibly unique visuals, reminiscent on the old days of 90s 3D computer graphics, before the first 3D movies were made, before Toy Story, before smooth and expressive animation was even possible in 3D. It's a style of the past that really hasn't resurged in the same way the Y2K aesthetic has. Instead, these days of 90s 3D computer graphics kind of just faded into oblivion. So seeing this style come back as an entire indie game that seems to not only respect but properly emulate that style is exciting. These visuals along with the trippy trance music make this game truly one of a kind, and I can go on and on about this style because it's just so unique. The enemies, the world, and UI elements, the NPCs, they all have this surreal expression to them. But playing Eternity Ache is a different story. Jumping into this game blind seemed like a good idea at the time because I wanted to get immersed into this unique and weird world. It was probably my biggest mistake, and while I can blame many things, I blame mostly myself because this game is clearly stated as an early access game. But I want my experience to be something that either the developer or fans can learn from. So what was my experience? Well, after seeing that incredible intro sequence where you get captured into the vase of this giant mysterious being and given this staff to use, you're thrown into the idiot's domain, a place I quickly came to understand was a tutorial zone, yet still despised as one. Mostly because while yes, you're given a sidekick of sorts, similar to Navi from Ocarina of Time, being this jester head that pops out of your staff, he's actually incredibly unhelpful. Learning the controls to this game was without a doubt the biggest problem I had throughout my entire Let's Play experience up to this point. I love games that teach you the controls without just straight up telling them to you, but instead use the tutorial zone as an opportunity for you to solve the puzzle of learning what each button does. Nintendo is one of those companies that have become really good at this concept. For example, even as far back as Super Mario Bros. Level 1-1, you quickly learn the core principles of the gameplay. That, along with only an A and B button, you learn Goomba equals enemy, kills you upon contact, jump to avoid, jump to squash, jump below a mystery block for a coin or a good item. You don't know if that mushroom is bad or good, but since you can't run backwards, you're likely going to come into contact with it. And wow, it made you bigger. Jump past the small pipe, learn to run to jump past the big pipe. You get the idea. Breath of the Wild did a great job on this too, because every other Zelda game before this, you couldn't jump, and also it wasn't an open world. Leaving that cave first thing teaches you the simple mechanics. You can run, jump, climb, and climb jump. You have the freedom of movement unlike any Zelda game prior. The game from there directs you to where you should go with the camera scenes showing important objectives or NPCs. But even if you decide to stray off of the clear path, the developers were prepared. This entire tutorial zone you're basically stuck in until you get the glider, which isn't given to you until you unlock all the other core abilities, one by one in their own dedicated shrine. By the time you get the glider, you're likely more than ready to jump into the vast fields of Hyrule. And sure, it's a bit unfair to compare a giant company like Nintendo to this indie developer, but I can make the same comparison with other indie games and devs. I never had any problems grasping the controls in A Hat in Time, Hollow Knight, Fez, Super Meat Boy, Haste, and so on. And look, nobody wants to be the IGN reviewer who couldn't get past the incredibly simple tutorial zone in Cuphead. I don't want to be that guy for this game. But in comparison, Cuphead literally shows you the controls and how to play. So even though it didn't cleverly disguise the tutorial zone as a level, it did something simpler, and in a lot of cases, better. It just told you what the moves are and how to play. And I don't think I should let the fear of looking like an IGN reviewer incentivize me into not being honest about my gameplay experience. But I'm gonna put a pin on the controls for a bit to talk about some of the other elements of this game. Eternity Egg has some really unique areas, and I discovered quite a lot of them from my time playing. You get into this almost meditative dream state while playing this game, staring at these bright in-your-face colors while listening to this weird music this game offers. I spent a lot of time in this froggy, grassy greens type overworld. This area is huge and has multiple layers that you can explore with all types of unique NPCs and architecture. And I cannot overstate how big this area is. There's specifically an elevator that takes you to the higher level of the area, and you can literally see everything by looking down from there. It's huge, and heck, the elevator itself takes like 2 minutes to go up. So for this game, there's not really a clear objective to my knowledge. Not at the moment, at least. From what I saw every streamer do and what I did myself was I kind of just explored and explored and explored, finding collectibles, talking to NPCs, learning bits and pieces about the world and lore, and fighting enemies and bosses. And I just cannot overstate how huge and frankly open world this game is for an indie game. You can exit that huge froggy grassy greens area to explore the true overworld, and you're given a cloud looking spaceship to travel with. And this thing is fast, man. But even as fast as it is, you're flying through the sky minutes at a time to go to each area. Now, there are these little checkpoint things that you can use to fast travel to places once you've been there for the first time, which is a huge help. There are so many biomes. There's so much to explore. It's honestly a little overwhelming. Mainly because you don't know if you're doing the right thing. You don't know if you're in the right area at the right time. You don't know if you missed something or if the game is glitched. There's no minimap either, and like I said, your little jester buddy isn't that helpful. He says things here and there, and he's clearly not a partner in the same way Navi or Cortana from Halo would be. He actually gives you the wrong advice, such as telling you to not collect fairies for some reason, even though they are a collectible item that you would want to get. I'm sure there's a really cool lore reason why he's like this and why any of this is happening, but as it stands now, you're kind of just playing a sandbox style game, where to my knowledge, there's not an end goal, nor objective, nor linear story. And like I said, this game is in early access, so I forgive it for all of this frankly, as long as we get these things upon final release. Because right now, it's more like an unlimited access demo, if that makes sense. I don't know if the creator has a story planned, but it's been in development for 5 years, so I really hope there's more behind the door. Now back to the controls and my genuine Let's Play experience. Once you get your grasp on the combat controls, the enemies can be pretty fun to fight against, as stupid as a lot of them can be. The starter level 1 grunt type enemies have this kind of annoying pathfinding where they zip to you at fast speeds and seem to endlessly roll around you, seemingly unintentionally until you take them out. You have a proper block ability and can lock onto enemies to take them down, so that's helpful. Also, enemies pretty much endlessly spawn, so I often found myself just dashing past them because they didn't seem worth my time. A lot of these enemies made me feel this way, to be honest. The frog creatures I didn't bother to battle, different enemies from each biome I just couldn't bother with. But sometimes I would get immersed in the fun yet far from perfect blocking and attacking timing battles with these enemies. In terms of bosses, the Idiot's Domain boss is kind of a joke. You just kind of have to learn how to attack him, and it's pretty much a waiting game outside of that. It's very clunky. Also, you have a health bar, but there's not a way to get health back unless you die and respawn. So I don't know what's up with that, but I hope there's an update where you can get little hearts that you can collect and get health back or something. Because trust me, I smashed just about every pot I could find and did not see a single heart or health recovery item. Smashing the pots are really fun, by the way. Back to the controls. I had a really hard time with the controls, man. My Let's Play experience was quite weird, to be honest. My first time playing, I somehow glitched outside of the Idiot's Domain into the next world over without defeating the boss or even learning that I could wall run, which completely changed my outlook on the controls for this game. I played like a few hours of this game in the other zones without knowing I could wall climb, which is like a foundational ability. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who struggled learning the wall run ability, because I watched streamers struggle to understand that this was a move to begin with as well, until someone in their chat told them that they can do that. A lot of reviewers had the same problem, and most of us don't have a chat that can just teach us the controls. So without any guidance on how to use this fairly intricate movement system, you're essentially just thrown out into the wolves. There's some really helpful YouTube videos out there now from fans who have become experts in the movement system and upgrade system and so on, so I'll link one of those below. I also learned how incredibly broken the ecstasy ability is. There's this like whole upgrade system to the game, and it doesn't make much sense, but ecstasy gives you essentially unlimited jumps and just extends your wall climbing time. It's way more broken than any other move, which is great, but also kind of not great if you think about it in the long run. Because all you would want to do is max out ecstasy, and I don't even know what luck does, to be honest. And from the reviewer who kind of showed me that this is the way to go, he didn't know either. I personally played on controller as well, which probably didn't help me in the long run because navigating stuff like the menu made that quite difficult, and I hope that can be improved in an update. But outside of that, I didn't have a problem playing on a controller, and I prefer it, to be honest. I don't know why my game glitched to the next world, and I'm assuming that's a fairly uncommon problem, but man, I spent a lot of time just being upset at the level design because it felt impossible. Because for me, it was impossible. Hours of just confusion, thinking, did I miss something? And my game was so glitched that a lot of NPCs and items and bosses were just not there when they should have been there, because I was there before I was supposed to be there. So for a large portion of my gameplay experience, I felt like I was exploring a somewhat empty world, traveling to a cool looking building only to find it empty for some reason. Was this intentional? I asked myself. No. It wasn't. At its worst, Eternity Egg is a computer game that looks like it's from the 90s and plays like it's from the 90s, being a chaotic mess with slippery controls that feel far from perfected. At its best, Eternity Egg is a fantastically crafted indie game that's a love letter to that once lost aesthetic from the 90s while being a fun, interesting game filled with its own mystery, quirky characters, and wickedly fun movement system. I don't know what an early access indie game should look like. Is this too early to be early access? Or is that the point of early access? The developer has already addressed a lot of these issues. There are already plans for the game to have a move to cancel mid-air momentum, which if you play this game for 5 minutes, you would be incredibly grateful for. A better tutorial for the start area, which I would argue there's not a tutorial at all to begin with right now, and bug fixes, which there's a lot of bugs, so hopefully there's a lot of fixes to come with them. I also think the game would greatly benefit from a minimap or some type of marker that shows where to go though, as the game is pretty much everywhere due to its often confusing level design, making it often feel like I missed something because I had to get to that place in a weird way, and that's because there was no other way to get there aside from going this weird and out of the way path. So yeah, I like this game. I'm happy I bought it. But like I said, it's not for everyone. Not just because its dedication to its weird style makes Digital Circus look tame in comparison, but also because it's a buggy, beautiful disaster, and you gotta be committed to learning with the community as this game gets patch after patch. It's a long road ahead, but I'm excited to see what's to come, and I wish the developer the best with this game. Anyway guys, thanks for watching, thanks for sticking around. Check out my Discord if you want to talk video games with me and my community, and check out my Instagram or TikTok if you want to see my art and apparel I make. Have a good rest of your day.